If you just go in a line starting either way and just introduce yourself. The camera.
Okay, go ahead. Okay. Hi, I'm Lydia Brahanu. I'm a third year. I use she, her pronouns. I'm currently studying Law, Societies, and Justice with a minor in informatics. That's me. I don't know how much you guys wanted to.
That's great.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Andal Sridhar. I use she, her pronouns. I'm originally from Shanghai, China, and I'm third year studying electrical and computer engineering, and I'm the current ASUW Senate speaker.
Hi, I'm Vernon Lumpkin. I'm a second year. I'm studying computer science. I'm from Singapore, and yeah.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the Daily for hosting. My name is Nandina Jaydeep. Incoming senior, she, her pronouns. I currently serve as the ASUW Vice President, and I also serve as the VP of Diversity for the Washington Student Association. I'm studying economics and data science, and I guess a fun fact is that I'm on UW's premier Bollywood fusion dance team.
All right, so I'm going to start with a question for everybody. There is a lot of uncertainty right now among students with ICE deportations and censorship on campuses. So how would you work with the university to protect students? Just go down.
Yeah. Want me to start? Okay. Yeah, that's a really wonderful question, especially with given the campus climate. I've been navigating that a lot personally on all different campuses across Washington because of my role as VP Diversity for the Washington Student Association. And with UW specifically, I know that a lot of the times these students just want to be heard and be heard in a place where they feel safe, because it's easy for us to advocate on their behalf, but no one really knows what's truly going on until we hear it from them. And I think student testimony system is like a great way for us to be able to like gather their true stories and bring it to the board of directors, or even bring it to like the provost advisory committee, for instance, so that the president and provost can hear these stories directly from the students, and this way their identities are protected, because under no circumstances should we ever compromise their identities, especially when the federal government is doing everything to attack them. And I think just uplifting their voices and making sure that our policy reflects their interests, and making sure we're working with the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity so that we codify these things and these programs. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Vernon. I talked about this in the first forum. I can't remember which one that was. But I have a friend at American University that recently got elected there a couple weeks ahead of us. And something he's been doing, I specifically spoke to him about this, something he's been doing with admin is they've been trying to come up with compliance policies that address the university's response when approached by federal organizations like the Department of Homeland Security or ICE, and what the response looks like. And so far what they've been working on is just non-compliance. Like they won't be helpful in helping them locate those students, and endangering the safety of their education. I do think what Nandana said about hearing those students out is really important. I was actually with a couple of them when they got that initial email from, I can't remember, it might have been Amory. But yeah, I think hearing them out will be really important.
I think one of the biggest things that we can do to protect undocumented and international students who are in a really vulnerable position right now is just to provide information. I think something that is adding to all of our mental burdens is just the overwhelming amount of information we're dealing with, and I think ASUW really needs to go out, consolidate that information, work with the Daily, and present it in an accessible manner, updated frequently in different languages on our websites, in person, tabling, really get that information out, and work with student legal services as well. On top of that, I think lobbying is one of the biggest tools we have. I think we need to get the word out, get students to sign in pro on legislation. For example, protecting students from having their financial aid stripped away if they choose to participate in activism and things like that. And yeah, I think information is our biggest tool right now.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So there's a lot of uncertainty among students with ICE deportations and censorship of free speech on campus. So how would you work with the university to protect students?
Okay, yeah, thank you for this question. So currently as the ASUW Director of Diversity Efforts, I'm the chair of the Joint Commissions Committee, which makes up all of ASUW's identity and advocacy commissions. So I've been working really closely with all of them, especially with everything that's been happening federally regarding DEI. And one thing me and the Office of International Students have been working on is, again, like the most recent post many of you may have seen floating around Instagram regarding toolkits and tools that students can use when scared with their visa status and things like that on campus. And additionally, one thing I'd really like to work on next year if elected into this office is a DEI safety toolkit. One thing I've learned from just being appointed by the Board of Regents to sit on their DEI advisory committee is that admin really values seeing numbers. Even though there's more to stories behind just a number, they really value seeing number and seeing data, and that's something that I've worked a lot with just as an informatics student. So being able to create a DEI safety toolkit that also has resources for students but also has the data behind student numbers and how many students are pressing issues. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome, thank you so much. So we'll move into individual questions that I have for you guys. We'll start with Nandana. So one of your top concerns is state funding for scholarships and financial aid. So how do you plan to address this, as well as funding cuts to research?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I know a lot of us have been getting a lot of overwhelmed with all of like the federal attacks on higher education. So I think it's all the more important that we start working on protecting what we have at the state level. And I know the Washington State College Grant helps a lot of families send their kids to college, and that's currently under attack. And I've been working in lobbying efforts, especially for immigrant families, since I was in high school. And I think that this is something that I'm super confident in my ability to be able to push for. I think the Washington Student Association that I'm a part of has been like the #1 lobbyist group for the Washington State College Grant. And so I think that it's really important that we sustain these efforts and take these people to Olympia themselves. So as an active liaison, I just don't want to be their voice, but I want to bring them to the Capitol so they can advocate for themselves in front of these legislators, because they want to hear from the students directly. So being a good lobbyist, but also being an active and accurate liaison so that you represent their interests directly.
Awesome, thank you. And your last question is, could you expand on your planned efforts related to capacity-constrained majors, grad school readiness, especially given the uncertainty of postgraduate and career prospects?
Yeah, thank you. So I think capacity-constrained majors has been something that I've been super passionate about because I'm in a capacity-constrained major, and I was elected director of university affairs my sophomore year, and this was sort of like my passion project. And we got along to creating like a working group with the provost present to kind of be like a task force to analyze what's the data behind capacity constrained majors, because a lot of the time UW doesn't even retain a lot of that information, so we don't know how many people even get rejected, how many majors did I even apply to before I got into my major. So just making sure we have access to information so that we can make sure that we're making the right decisions moving forward. So I want to take that task force to a whole new level by adding student reps directly from departments that face this issue. And in terms of grad school prepness, I want to make sure ASUW is operationally efficient so that we can put more money into these programs, so that such as something we did this year was free grad exam prep materials. So things like that, where advocacy efforts directly benefit students rather than like us just releasing statements or making promises, but these books are directly in the hands of students. Okay, thank you.
Awesome, thank you so much. All right, Vernon, hi. Your next question is, a major part of your platform is your connection to the community and the student experience. How will this inform your presidency during such uncertain times?
Yeah, so I talked about this during the student policy seminar yesterday. I think that I just have a social tendency to just connect with people and say hi to everyone. And that expands beyond students, but also to admin, I think people of importance, a lot of people in local, state level government, and also a lot of tech companies. So this is kind of circling back to one of the questions you asked, Nana, but when it comes to funding, I'm talking to some big tech companies that I can't really be specific about, but they really do want to invest in research funding surrounding tech and AI. And so when they come in with a lot of different funding from there, and they can support like the CS school, they get a lot of funding from the federal level and the state level, and that can be pushed into other STEM majors or even just the arts and humanities as a whole. And so I think using community resources and people that are willing to support the university will be really important.
Awesome, thank you. And your last question is, you mentioned your lack of direct experience with ASUW compared to other candidates makes you a better fit. Could you just elaborate on that and why you've chosen to run as president?
Yeah, so I've heard from some of the people involved with ASUW, both admin and students, that maybe they're just trying to be nice to me, but they feel like having someone that hasn't always been directly tied to ASUW can be a useful position to have in like the most outwardly facing position as president, because you haven't been caught necessarily in like this herd mentality of like what's being focused on within student government, and you're able to bring an outside perspective in that's fresh and new and can reorient if necessary. But also, I want to keep an open mind. That may not be the correct approach, and I'm open to changing my consensus.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Andal. You mentioned addressing the changes in federal and state funding for higher education. What plans do you have for addressing these in your role as president, especially related to your concerns about research opportunities and international and minority students?
So a lot of what I have to say ties into what Nandana was saying about really bolstering our lobbying efforts at the state level. And what that involves is numbers of students and getting the word out to students, telling them that they can sign in pro on bills that are affecting them, and also testify. And to testify, we really need to be providing workshops on public speaking and empowering students, which I think is something I've done a lot this year as Senate Speaker. I also, last year, as a member of board, chaired legislative agenda review task force to really expand the process and get RSOs involved. On research specifically, I think Washington State is a leader in sustainability research, and we really need to protect that, appeal to legislators on that identity issue of Washington State, and really just creating channels of communication.
So you kind of touched on this for your next question, but how will your role as Vice Speaker and Speaker for ASUW Senate inform your role and initiatives as President?
So, the number one thing that these roles have taught me is just how to empower students. Like I said previously, how to get students, because I can't claim to know every issue, to dig deep, bring in their perspectives, talk to their peers, and bring issues to the forefront. Also, how to get administrators to care really is bringing them into a room, talking to them face to face, and having them justify all of their decisions to the student body. And I want to create a chamber bringing together the faculty senate along with the student senate, GPSS. The faculty senate makes a lot of big decisions without really any student input, and that really has to change. The other thing I've done is really cultivate a wholesome and inclusive community, and I think that's what is missing from ASUW is just the lack of human connection. And really making sure students know that ASUW is relevant to them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And Lydia, hi. How will your role as Director of Diversity Efforts inform your role as President? And what have you identified across the university that requires attention? You kind of touched on this, but can you elaborate?
Okay. Yeah, so I've been very privileged to act as the Director of Diversity Efforts this year, especially with everything that's been going on federally. And I think that this role has just allowed me to connect with so many students. In the beginning of the school year, I was able to just connect with the ECC registered RSOs and just form bonds and connections, and just through that, again, I kind of mentioned the DEI safety toolkit already, but I just kind of wanted to expand on it because it is something that a lot of RSOs and ASUW constituents of mine have really said they feel is valuable. And what I see for that and what I envision for that is basically just a toolkit resource that I, as president, and other commissions and other RSOs could definitely all work on together. That would just be a resource for students who face, again, insecurities with food, but also are scared in a time like this when their visas are at risk and their citizenship or whatever the case may be for that person is at risk. Recently there was a hate crime performed on the ASUW, and it was a transgender woman who was brutally beat, and a toolkit, a hotline is needed to be pushed out. So things like that encompassed in one.
And your last question is, one of your concerns is student access to healthcare, especially funding and reproductive services. How will you address the impact of federal and state budget cuts on both students seeking and providing care?
Yeah, so in my platform I had mentioned a desire to expand the vending machine that we have on campus, and by expand I mean payment options, expanding payment options with making it more accessible, as well as expanding locations hopefully on both North and West Campus, because right now it's just central to the main campus. And in terms of budget and finance, I think again, everyone has mentioned that lobbying efforts is the biggest thing we can do at ASUW, and at a state level, that is the most we can do with such a small group of students, obviously. But I've like many of these candidates, have a lot of lobbying experience. I started as an OGR intern my freshman year at ASUW, and that just gave me a lot of experience with the university's legislative agenda and drafting it and what that means, but also going to the Capitol and what it means to lobby in front of a representative. And I think in terms of lobbying, we just have to be vocal. Again, I mentioned the importance of data, so how many students would be affected by the decrease in the Washington College grant? How many students use the Washington College grant on campus? So presenting data as well as student testimony is really important.
Thank you so much. All right, thank you. We can move on to VPs now.
Thank you.
Hey, so kind of like what we did with the presidents, if y'all wouldn't mind just introducing yourselves, and then we can get into the questions.
Yeah. Do you want to
Go for it.
Okay, cool. Hi, I'm Peyton Sachs. I am a junior here at UW. I'm a communications and public policy minor, communications major, public policy minor, and I'm running for ASUW vice president. I'm from Denver, Colorado, and love Huskies.
Yeah, my name is Sonal Verk. I use she, her pronouns. I am a double major in finance and human resources management with a double minor in diversity and human rights. I'm super passionate about all things surrounding student council, as I also serve on the UBC, which is the official student council of the Foster School of Business, and then on the ASUW board of directors as their personnel director. Super excited to be here, and thank you so much for having us.
Hi everybody, I'm Jenna Miller. I use she, her pronouns. I'm currently a political science and LSJ major, and I'm currently on the leadership team of our student senate. So I'm part of a 4-person leadership team, and we really get to facilitate a lot of good student opinion, and I get to hear from a lot of different communities. And so I'm excited to be able to use that platform as vice president.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to start off with a question that I have for all three of you. So, over the past few months, the Trump administration has pursued a policy of abducting, detaining, and deporting international students over their role in pro-Palestine protests. And the question is, do you think that UW has done enough to stand against these actions? And if elected, what steps would you take to protect students from political repression?
Yeah, I would say I don't think that UW has done enough when it comes to trying to protect students. For me personally, one of the big things that I run on my platform is having ASUW outreach. And so in doing so, I want to be in direct communication with RSOs and classrooms and FIGs even, and just be able to talk to as many communities as possible, because I think that is the most important thing when I'm thinking about what the UW has or hasn't done in order to protect students, is to be able to talk to those students and be able to figure out what their needs are and what things that they're missing and what things that they want to see from the university in the future. Because ultimately I will be able to know everything that students need, and so I want to make sure that I am outreaching as much as possible, and that for me will be getting outside of the office, not just trying to host office hours and post them, but actually physically going out and talking to students, because it's much harder to get interaction when you expect students to come to you instead of you going to them.
Yeah, for sure. I really like this question because last quarter I was in Human Rights in Latin America, where I was on the field, the Boeing field we have here, which works with, they basically deport individuals every Tuesday, and so I was observing ICE flights and seeing like the suspicious activity that was happening on the field. I know that you guys did a cover on that as well, so that was super amazing. But in comparison to that, I don't think we've done enough at all. I know that the Board of Regents had brought in like an open discussion of divesting from certain companies that may support the genocide that is happening, and they opened it up to discussion, and right then and there, they were like, let's take a vote for like an extensive discussion on this matter, and they voted no. I think that's extremely concerning, as this was just to have an open discussion, and that was the first step. And since they voted no, a lot of our students felt a certain way that they were even like not even open to having that discussion, and seeing the ways that people are being treated within those facilities, even when they're being deported, and how depressing it really is. It took a toll. Okay, thank you.
I really appreciate this question because I think that there's a lot of different layers to it. What I think that we as students need to be doing is protecting our freedom of speech on campus and allowing all of our students access to the information that protects them as students. These students with visas that are being revoked have rights, but they need to know what they are. So that's expanding our resources of the student legal services to these students, making students aware of the rights that they do have, and allowing for those conversations to truly be open. We can't have progress if we're not going to have a conversation. So we have to be able to open minds and involve different areas of campus, different students, different staff members, also involve our different schools like the Jackson School, who I know does a lot of international studies. That's kind of their whole thing. But involve these experts in these conversations. Thank you.
So then I think we're going to start with you, Peyton.
Yeah.
So how will your experience as Director of Programming for ASUW inform your approach to the Vice Presidency? And are there any policy goals from your previous role that you would hope to continue or expand if elected?
Yes, 100%. I'm so grateful that you just asked me that question. I am our current Director of Programming for ASUW, and I did not start in ASUW last year. So this year was my first year in ASUW. So I really got to understand the inner workings and gaps that we have within ASUW. Right now we have a big collaboration gap that has been something that I've been actively trying to do and work on through our programming team, and really trying to gather not only like my lovely interns that I have, but also foster inner ASUW collaboration. Right now our culture at ASUW is very siloed. So something that I really want to expand on is not only making our ASUW community more collaborative, but also opening that up to the student body by creating an RSO Discord and an all-student event Discord, and working with the Director of Programs to see that through next year. I also really want to demystify ASUW as a whole and refurbish the way that we communicate about ASUW to students.
All right, thank you. And then my next question
Yeah.
is, so one of your proposed policies is to increase food and housing affordability for students.
100%.
Could you just elaborate more on the steps you'd like to see towards that and what challenges you might expect to face?
Totally. I think there's definitely challenges, especially with federal funding that's about to happen next year. But again, it's all about conversation and collaboration. So that's like bringing our student food co-op, who I get to the pleasure of liaisoning to this year, and bringing them and then other student affinity groups like the UW Food Bank into conversations of how we can increase food affordability for students to UW administration and faculty. This year we've been trying to work with HSBS to lower food prices in the hub because the kombucha should not be $8. And so that's something that I really want to do next year and work with our student groups. Again, it's about gathering that collective expertise. I, as my own student, I don't know much, so I want to benefit from the communities that we do have on campus and lobby for cheaper and more affordable housing and food.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So Sonal,
Yeah.
in your platform, you mentioned that you want to increase awareness, transparency, and accountability of ASUW. Do you have any specific ways in which you think ASUW needs to improve in these regards? And if so, what policies do you plan on pursuing to address that?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for this question. This year I serve as the Personnel Director, so Chief of HR. Accountability is the main goal of this job, whether somebody's not doing their job, whether there's problems within the internal office, kind of like resolving those problems, conflicts, whatever it is. But I do know that accountability is an issue that the whole entire UW student body can agree on when it comes to student government. And a policy that I want to implement and kind of really lead with as the Chief Operational Officer of the ASUW would be to establish internal task forces. So this year I was able to work with the VP this year and also the President to reevaluate some of our internal commissions and entities and see if they're actually contributing, if we need to get rid of them, if we need to improve them in any sort of way so that we could operate at the highest optimal level. And so that is something that I would want to implement next year and go in with to make sure that our organization is running as efficiently and effectively as possible to give back to you guys a little bit more. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. And then my next question, you mentioned that you support increasing accessibility and mental health services for students.
Yeah.
How will this inform your approach specifically to UW's DRS office?
Yeah.
And how specifically do you intend to use the position of vice president to increase accessibility for students?
Yeah, for sure. So as a diversity and human rights minor, I've taken a load of courses, and although I'm not an individual who is a part of like the disabled student population, I am a really strong advocate for them. And in one of my introduction to disability studies classes, one of the questions was, are you seeking any sort of accessibility issues here on campus? And my direct answer was no. But I do know students that are. And a policy that I want to implement is increasing the entire student campus by 25%, making all buildings more accessible by 25% so that we have more signage, we have more elevator accessibility, implementing ramps, whatever it may be, and in collaboration with the DRS office, kind of getting those statistics, getting those key metrics, like how much of our campus is already accessible, how can we improve, in collaboration. And this is more of like a passion project because I'm so passionate about diversity and human rights here on our campus. And so in that collaboration, speaking to them proactively, like, hello, what can we do together? What can we improve? What are the statistics? Thank you.
Thank you. So then, Jenna, you mentioned that you intend to increase opportunities for students to gain professional experience, both in and out of the ASUW. Could you just expand on what policies you intend to pursue towards that goal?
Absolutely, thank you. And I think that increasing student opportunities both within and outside of the ASUW needs to be one of our top priorities to be able to gain just more collaboration within our organization so that we can reach out to as many students as possible. The specific thing that I want to do is I've highlighted in my platform is that I want to create an ASUW career and internship fair. And so with this fair, I really intend on trying to reach as many different student groups as possible because not everyone in ASUW is a political science major. And so I want to be able to reach out to all the other schools and disciplines that we have here at the university and create and promote new opportunities for internships and for job opportunities and volunteer opportunities and be really, really intentional with the outreach that I'm having. Because when I do outreach to students, I want to make sure that they are feeling like they are being heard because ultimately, if I try and outreach on a platform that they're not passionate about, then they're not going to want to come join us, and I want to have as many voices as possible.
Thank you. So then, last question. One of your proposed policies is also to expand student voices on UW's federal relations team. Could you tell me more about what that would look like and what challenges you might expect in helping to bring students' perspectives to state and federal government?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of challenges when it comes to bringing student voices to state and federal government, especially with our given administration and a lot of students that are vulnerable. So a lot of our students are international students or undocumented students. And so in trying to create a place where they can have a voice is going to bring its challenges. I don't ever want to put a student in a position where they're feeling unsafe. And so for me, if that is hearing from undocumented students, I want to be able to share their stories anonymously or be able to advocate for students that are unlike my own because I want to learn from as many communities as possible so that I can advocate for them properly. It would be really difficult to advocate for communities that I have not had direct contact with. And that was something I also highlighted earlier in my platform that I really do want to be active and engaging with communities. And so in speaking with our students that I'm not the communities that I'm not a part of, I want to make sure that I get to learn as much from them and be able to advocate for them and their stories properly.
All right, thank you. That is all the questions I have for the three of you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, y'all.
We will move on to Director of Internal Policy, so I will just call out candidates separately. We can start, is Ashwin Anand here? Ashwin. Yeah.
If you want to start by introducing yourself.
Sure. Hi everybody, my name is Ashwin Anand. I'm a freshman at the University of Washington studying economics and data science. Originally born in Chicago, but moved to the Bay Area, and now I'm here in Seattle. Thank you for the Daily for hosting this. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so for your first question, one of the things you mentioned as one of your goals, if elected, was to streamline ASUW's bureaucracy. In your experience as an ASUW senator, what is one example of a process that is unnecessarily complex that you would like to simplify?
Sure. Well, I'll kind of speak first to my own experience within the legislative process. Early in the fall quarter and I guess transitioning into winter quarter, I proposed my own legislation in the ASUW Student Senate to kind of promote financial literacy within all students. One thing that I noticed while drafting the process and even getting it passed within Student Senate is that the process took quite a long time. Even while while the bill was still in the midst of getting passed, I'm still talking to first year programs to get the program implemented. But I noticed that it's hard to get the resources in order to see like example bills that have already been proposed, but even then, knowing who to reach out to in order to draft legislation to create the change by themselves was also a hard process. As Director of Internal Policy, my only goal is to increase the amount of access and information that people have. Someone already mentioned information is one of the greatest things that we currently have in our process. So expanding that information, expanding access, making it more personable, and making people eager and excited to propose their own legislation to create their own change.
Thank you. My second and last question is, another one of your goals is to ensure ASUW's record management aligns with Washington's Open Public Meetings Act. Are you aware of any ways in which ASUW is or may be non-compliant with that act?
Sure. As of right now, I think most of our records are compliant with OPMA. But one thing that I do want to kind of create for itself is, even though we like align with the amount of regulations that we have, we're still at the bare minimum of exposing this information and making it accessible to students, as I mentioned previously. So not only is ensuring compliance just the first step, it's only like entering us into the door of the open amount of possibilities that we can do with our previous records, right? Working off of our mistakes from the past and creating change in the future is of utmost importance to me. And so not only is ensuring compliance with OPMA one of my primary kind of avenues, but seeing where that potential can lead. How can increasing access to our resources and our previous records actually ensure future compliance, future amounts of progress that we can make within the student body? Again, by opening up forums for students to come to me to see what problems they are facing, I want to give back to the students and give them the resources in order to create their own change. I think there's a lot of personal freedom that we have within the UW that is untapped right now.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Up next is Simon Thompson. Oh, he's already up.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, awesome. Hi there, my name is Simon Thompson. I'm a first year studying political science with planned majors in leadership and Spanish. I'm from Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I moved here earlier this year, and I'm really excited to be here.
Great. So my first question is, you mentioned one of your priorities is to strengthen accountability and oversight by ensuring ASUW operates with integrity through oversight mechanisms and proactive policy enforcement. What are some of those oversight mechanisms and policies that you would use or focus on?
Yeah, I think the main oversight policy that I wanted to focus on is that we are supposed to be for the students and really making sure that students have the ability to have that oversight. And I think a key part of that is that a lot of students don't know what ASUW is, so we're lacking that oversight because if students don't understand what's going on within ASUW, then they're not going to be able to keep us in check, right? So I think that within Director of Internal Policy, although it is an internal position, that all of the positions within Board of Directors really need to be out there and talking to students within this next year and starting those conversations and really getting to make sure that students understand what ASUW is. I think that as long as students have the ability to be that oversight to the Board of Directors, that's going to be the key thing I would like to focus on. We have almost $1.5 million of student funding, and a lot of students really don't understand that. So if they don't understand that, then how are they supposed to know that they're supposed to be the ones keeping us in check? That would be my biggest thing.
Then my last question would be, one of your mentioned priorities is to include diverse voices in ASUW, specifically with policy revisions of bylaws. What do you think is the importance behind doing this, and how would you convince diverse students to spend their time kind of going over things that have been done before?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. So a big part of that is that I really want diverse voices from within the ASUW. So that means including different entities within conversations about policy reform. So whether it be the personnel policy, whether it be the EPP, whether it be the bylaws, letting those employees and those elected positions have the opportunity to be a part of those conversations, I think is really important, right? Because all of the students have different perspectives than I do. Although I think that I can try my best to include those different perspectives within my reform, within the internal or the policies that I do oversee. I think it's really important to really have those conversations with different people to really ensure that I'm getting different backgrounds, different perspectives, different priorities whenever we're making those revisions. If we're not doing that, then you have one person that's making revisions, and that may not be reflecting the student body, because I mean, if you think about it, I really can't represent over 40,000 students on my own. So yeah, I think that's really the key importance, is that we are really making sure that we are serving the student body correctly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Alright, we're going to move on to Director of Diversity Efforts. So is Valeria in here? No. Alright. Nevia? Marshall?
Can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi everybody, my name is Neviat Marcos. I'm a third year here at UW and I was born and raised in Seattle. I'm a first generation college student and I'm Ethiopian. And I'm studying informatics with a minor in diversity and a focus in information and society.
So my first question is, one of your plans to increase student engagement in ASUW is to have on-campus organizations host community-strengthened forums and town halls. What do you mean by community strengthened, and how can we ensure that the people who attend these town halls or forums are representative of the larger UW community?
Yeah, I really like that question because I think something that's important to the Director of Diversity Efforts obviously is incorporating DEI and B strategy, so diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and that includes accessibility as well. I think that a common theme within my platform is recognizing how significant the different RSOs and entities that we have on campus are, because we have these different, not only RSOs, but commissions within the ASUW that sit under the Director of Diversity Efforts. We have all of these groups because they are better able to serve their constituents rather than one person overseeing everything. So I think that by connecting with all of these affinity groups, we can strengthen these forums and town halls because we'll be able to incorporate inclusion into our events. I think that sometimes ASUW can come off a bit internal, and this is coming from somebody who has been in ASUW for the past 2 years. I want to really alleviate that by incorporating outside entities.
And then my last question is, a UW lab technician was recently detained and is being held in detention in Tacoma. 9 international students have had their visas taken away by the Trump administration this week. How did these developments impact your approach to your position?
Yeah, I think that when creating my campaign, I really kept in mind the current political climate that we're in. Obviously, the recent news about student visas has been devastating, and before I created my campaign. But my first experience in ASUW was in the Office of International Student Advocacy, and I learned a lot about the importance of and the concerns of international students on campus, and that including being not only work visas but visas in all capacities. I think that my response to this would be just sharing as many resources as I can, and also just as the next Director of Diversity Efforts, working with the Office of International Student Advocacy and utilizing the knowledge that I already have from sitting in that office. I think that the DDE is a really powerful position because you get access to all these constituent group leaders, and I really want to prioritize that. A big part of my campaign is leveraging student experiences and concerns in order to cultivate a better environment for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next is Taylor Arredondo. Introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Taylor Arredondo. I'm a second year currently studying political science and minoring in human rights and Latin American Caribbean studies, and I'm from Spokane, Washington.
Great, so my first question is, more attacks come down every day from the Trump administration targeting marginalized students. How will you leverage ASUW's resources to support these students, especially if the university administration capitulates to the federal government?
Yeah, I think the main priority is standing against the administration if and when they do capitulate or when they try to comply, because we have rights as students, and most importantly, international students, undocumented students, and all students here on campus have the right to learn and grow here on campus, and that is not something that can just be removed from them just because of one current administration. And so I think first and foremost, it's taking a stand as a collective and as the board of directors saying we are not going to allow you to do this to our students, to our constituents and the people that voted us in. I think also making sure that they have the support needed, understanding that funding is not going to be taken away from them, their housing is not in jeopardy, and making sure that they're supported during this time by legal services that we have here on campus and making sure they have access to them. I think also it's part of a wider culture of making sure that red cards are everywhere, ensuring that people know their rights and have access to those rights, and making sure that those kind of conversations are being had, or funding RSOs that hold meetings.
And then my last question is, you mentioned the diversity blueprint in your statement. Can you explain some of the specific elements that most excite you, and do you think this will be enough?
Yeah, well, I want to target the first half of that first. I don't think it's enough. I think that we need to actually create and hold accountable UW for their promises, but I think the UW Diversity Blueprint is a really great start. It's holding faculty, staff, students, as well as a curriculum that we learn from accountable to ensuring DEI in all processes, as well as first-year programs and ensuring that they are considering diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in all of their processes. And I think that's a really great start, but there is so much more that we can do, and we've seen UW make promises they've not hold. And so I think we need to continue to pressure them to make sure that they are holding themselves accountable, and that they are ensuring that not only when this ends in 2026, that another one is reoccurring with more promises and more commitments and determination to make sure that these things are upheld.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're moving on to Director of Programming. Is Grace Clark here?
Awesome. My name is Grace Clark. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a third year studying LSJ and disability studies and minoring in music. I'm super excited to be here and talk with y'all about programming.
Hi, Grace.
Hi.
One of your listed objectives is to integrate commissions and RSOs into town halls to increase engagement. What specifically do you envision this integration looking like?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it looks as simple as locating different student commissions and RSOs, since I'll be overseeing the RSOs and collaborating with the Director of Diversity Efforts, to incorporate specific student commissions by inviting them to RSO, or inviting them to town halls, I see it looking as though if we want to allow them space to create an agenda, if they have specific policy goals that they want to see implemented at the ASUW level. I think also collaborating with them outside of the town hall space and really being personable and integrating myself as an advocate and not just somebody top down, just kind of overseeing them. I think it also looks like attending RSO meetings. I think that being somebody who's true to my word is one of my biggest values. So attending RSO meetings and making sure that they understand me as an advocate and as a friend of their RSO and their agendas.
Wonderful. And then you state you want to increase the accessibility and transparency of ASUW funding opportunities. What do you feel are ASUW's current accessibility and transparency? What do you feel it currently lacks? And what do you plan to do to change the current system?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an awesome question. I was having a conversation the other day thinking about accessibility as a sort of broader concept, and candidates earlier have talked about ASUW being very siloed and students not feeling like they're able to access the resources both logistically and also socially. I think that if you don't feel like you can access something, you can't access it. So I think that is super important for me to step in as Director of Programming and planning events that uplift students that are outside of the ASUW sphere. And that can look like by both collaborating with RSOs and reaching out to their constituents, but also trying to target other off-campus groups, partnering with the Director of Community Relations and Campus Partnerships to incorporate Greek Life and RCSA, students that might not be affiliated with student commissions and RSOs, or any of those organizations, frankly. Talking with people on the the sidewalk, I think is a really helpful tool to integrate students into something really important like ASUW that has a lot of resources for them. And also I think by, creating checklists and resources for them to understand what ASUW can give.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Rhiannon Hayes McQueen here?
Hi, my name is Rhiannon Hayes McQueen. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a third year in human-centered design and engineering with a minor in American Sign Language.
Hi, Rhiannon. You list some events you plan to host, including a quarterly RSO fair, a campus cherry blossom festival, and so forth. Especially in mind of like budget cuts and budget freezes currently affecting every department at UW, how do you plan to finance these events and mitigate financial strain?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when I was writing these, my platform, that was before a lot of these cuts were really starting to affect UW and campus. So I think first and foremost, I want to make sure that the events that we're already hosting, that students are already enjoying, are funded. And so making sure those events have the funding they need to not only continue as they have been, but to reach wider audiences and to also be more accessible and inclusive. Beyond that, if funding allows, I would love to continue running some new events like some of the ones I listed, like quarterly RSO fairs, so students know that they can join an RSO any time of year, and students maybe who transfer in winter quarter have an RSO fair to go to. But at the same time, I also really want to be mindful of what students actually want. So if nobody wants that, I'm not going to spend money on it. I'm instead going to focus on what students are telling me they want. And in human-centered design and engineering, we really focus on understanding the needs of our people before we do anything. So understanding their needs.
You state that you plan to promote inclusivity and accessibility in campus events. Can you give any specifics as to what promoting these values would look like were you to be elected?
Yeah, I think for any event, it'll look slightly different, but one big thing is having options for students. So for example, for an RSO fair, those are usually held in person. And so if you're online looking at the really outdated RSO directory that is hard to navigate and doesn't necessarily have the RSO you're looking for, you're not going to be able to participate. And so I think having, first and foremost, updating that website. But then when we have those RSO fairs, for example, offering an online option where students can look and see what current RSOs are at that fair and contact them. In addition, for some of other in-person events, providing more accessible sitting locations for the concerts, for example, providing land that isn't just like muddy grass, that kind of thing. But also hearing what people want to say. Again, I don't know all the problems at these events, so I really want to reach out. And also just observe at current events we already hold and see who or who isn't being served at those events.
Thank you. Next is Owen Rivera.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Owen Rivera. I'm a current first year here at UW. I am currently working as an intern for internal policy. One of the biggest things I'm working on is the ASUW fair that is next Friday, as well as increasing ASUW awareness on campus.
Hi, Owen. You state that you plan to collaborate with ASUW entities and RSOs to host events such as student-led concerts, diversity fairs, and fashion exhibitions, similarly to what I asked of Rhiannon. Thinking of the budget cuts and freezes at UW, what is your strategy for funding these events sufficiently?
That's a great question, thank you. I think first, the biggest problem that we have is a lot of students don't know what ASUW is. When I'm out campaigning, about a fourth of the students I've talked to don't know what ASUW is or what they do. So I believe that working closely with OCOM can help us a lot. Just getting RSO, their names out there, knowing what their values are, what events they're running, and especially fundraising. Like you just said, fundraising is sort of always an issue for RSOs. We have a general fund that RSOs can access, but this is only $2,500. And if you want to book a room in Kane Hall, it's around $4,000. And I believe that we can work a lot closer with RSOs to, like I said, help them with funding, get their names out there. But not only this, I think that what we can do is in RSO leadership summits, we can help increase their resources that they have availability to if they say attend a couple of them. Thank you.
Of course. And then in the RSO leadership summits that you plan to hold, you mentioned that you want these summits to be a place for RSO leaders to find funding and mentorship. What do you specifically envision for these summits, and how do you see them as having a positive impact for RSOs?
Oh, perfect. Like I was just saying, I plan to hold more these RSO leadership summits more often. Say every few weeks or something like that, because I want to have a platform where RSO leaders can come to me about their issues, that whether it be funding, whether it be internal problems, anything that they need from ASUW that I can help with. And as I was saying before, I think if we can have more RSO leaders coming to these events, knowing funding, knowing accessibility to, like I was saying, the ASUW general fund that they can get to. But not only that, I think that if we increase just our collaboration with all RSOs, we can also talk about creating more events, say with multiple RSOs collaborating together. A big thing that I would like to oversee myself is having a fashion week where, say, RSOs from marginalized communities can get representation through their culture that has not traditionally been at UW. And I would really like to work on stuff like that for all the students at UW.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Up next is Remy Martin. Priya, but you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Remy Martin. I'm a second year student here. I would like to study neuroscience, but still have to apply to that major. Fun facts about me. I was on one of those cut videos. That was fun.
Hi, Remy.
Hi.
You outlined 3 main goals: emphasizing student physical and mental health, emphasizing inclusion, and emphasizing collaboration. What concrete ideas do you have about how these ideals will influence your decision-making in this role?
Can I get that last part one more time?
Yeah, what concrete ideas do you have about how these ideals are going to influence your decision-making as in this role, in this office?
Well, first of all, I think collaboration is a great influence to have in terms of having that influence me in this position. I think there's tons of untapped potential within the school to collaborate with them and create better programs for the school. For example, RSOs could be great for holding events that give students an opportunity to socialize and join things. So working with them and understanding that they need more funding and they need more of a voice at ASUW. And I think focusing on student health is also a really great thing to have as an influence on my campaign. I think without having your physical and mental health at its peak is really detrimental to student success. And I think it's not emphasized enough, and people should not, avoid going to the doctor or avoid that sort of thing. They should welcome it and, have easy access to it.
Yeah. And then you state that you want ASUW events to reflect the fact that music is diverse and widespread. How do you see yourself ensuring that this will be an important part of event planning?
I think definitely reaching out to different groups is going to be super important. I would bet that there's at least 20 bands involved in UW, just small bands in the community that aren't represented or don't get a lot of recognition. And I think giving them the platform to expand their reach and expand their audience would be awesome, while also representing it would be awesome for the students and for the bands, and just it would be a very mutual relationship. I think there's just so much hidden potential within the UW community, and especially within the music community, and I think it's a way to represent different cultures and different groups and just different styles of life. And I think being at the intersection of that would be really cool and really good for UW.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lastly is Will Banks. No? All right. We are going to move on to Director of Community Relations. First up is Brandon Palin. No? Okay. Tanya Bondari.
Hi everyone, my name is Tanya Bandari. My pronouns are she, her. I'm currently serving as an elected committee chair at the Student Senate and a policy intern with the Office of Government Relations, and I'm pursuing a double degree in computer and political science. Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
Hi, Tanya. So you emphasize the importance of storytelling and shared experiences in fostering unity. How do you envision creating platforms or opportunities where all students, especially those from marginalized communities, feel empowered to share their stories meaningfully and safely?
Oh my goodness, I love that question. I'd say it's a part of a lot of the leadership experiences I've had is having this emphasis on telling and sharing people's individual stories, even when they may not, or their experiences may not resonate with mine. And particularly in regards to your question, how do you create those spaces? How do you have that opportunity for interconnectedness and cultural cross-pollination here on the UW campus? I talk a lot about reinstating Parnassus Cafe or having a lot of community sort of events and spaces for different RSOs, whether they're ASUW affiliated or not, and different institutions and departments on campuses to co-host events, interact with students, and making sure that ASUW provides that funding or provides that support in those spaces. But again, making sure that we're always reaching out to these different communities. And as Director of Community Relations, a lot of the constituents that I serve are constituents that a lot of us are part of communities that a lot of us aren't really part from. So, commuter students, international students, transfer students, such a variety of groups, and I want to make sure that I make the effort to connect with them and make sure that the events that ASUW hosts or sponsors are accessible to all of these students, that we keep them in mind.
Thank you. Your platform touches on both campus-level initiatives and broader systemic issues like federal policy and public transit. How will you balance addressing immediate student concerns while also pushing for long-term structural change in your role as Director of Community Relations?
Great question. I'll start with, to give you an example, I'll start with one of my biggest platform priorities, and that's safety and security on campus, which year after year is such a concern for students. And so what I've proposed in my platform is sort of a short-term solution, right? Because as Director of Community Relations, your term being a year, it's a great chance to get the ball rolling, but a lot of initiative, especially going throughout the bureaucracy, can't be fully completed in that year. But what I've proposed in regards to safety and security is a non-emergency reporting system and increased campus lighting around Drummeller Fountain and Eagleson Hall. So sort of smaller, more cost-effective initiatives that can be taken care of during my term, and I can really get the ball rolling and advocate for students in that regard. But you did mention federal policy and sort of these longer-term plans and initiatives that I can also take care of within that umbrella, and that could be expanding UW PD jurisdiction, right? Working with Safe Alert, making sure Night Ride and Night Walk are resources that are more accessible to students during the first year orientation, and making sure that's more, they have that opportunity to interact with those resources. So again, just framing this from big picture and sort of a smaller idea on how can I take that initiative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jessica Fan.
Can I start?
Yeah, you can introduce yourself. Yeah.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Jessica Fan. I'm a first year. I'm from Linwood, Washington. I'm studying political science and economics at the moment. I'm really happy to be here and I'm excited to run for the Director of Community Relations.
Hi, Jessica. So you mentioned wanting to bridge gaps between different student sectors at UW. How would you ensure that smaller or less visible communities feel equally represented in your proposed quarterly summits alongside larger organizations like HFS?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe that every single RSO should have an equal opportunity. I believe that equity is a really big, important idea that we should instill in all sectors of our lives. I think that I, as the Director of Community Relations, would go through the list of registered RSOs, which seems daunting, but I promise you it's not going to be as hard of a task. And I'd go through every single one of that list, and I would reach out to them personally, make sure that they are all individually invited, send out these reminders, reach out to them and meet with them personally to ensure that they know who I am and my purpose for being Director of Community Relations. In addition, I believe that we should have around 1 to 2 representatives attending these seminars or quarterly summits to ensure that there is an equal opportunity and equal representation, even within the large RSOs and within the small RSOs. So yeah, I'm almost out of time, so.
You've talked about feeling lost as a new student and wanting to restructure first-year programs. What specific changes do you believe would make the biggest difference in helping new students feel both welcomed and empowered early on?
Absolutely. So I remember coming into UW, I was really intimidated. I knew that somehow I'd end up here, but I didn't really know what that entailed. I knew that I wanted to get involved, I knew that I wanted to do all of these things, but how do I do them? I think that this sense of visibility and transparency among all of these RSOs and organizations and ASUW and the Daily and all of these other places where students can get involved should be heavily recorded and sent out to all of our new students, just because I think that when I was coming in, I had a lot of trouble kind of finding how to get involved. You have to apply for all of these things. There are no volunteer opportunities. There's a lot of different things that you have to be accepted for, and that's not what I want to foster here at UW. I want to ensure that students have an equal opportunity and they're able to get this kind of sense of community within all of these places and spaces, and so I believe that to do that, I think that we need to have orientation, be more transparent, and have all of these channels be received. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to move on to Director of Campus Partnerships. Is Moti Gillette here?
Hello everyone, my name is Moti Gillette. I'm a third year studying finance and I was born and raised in Vancouver, Washington and happy to be here. So.
Hi Moti. So you have a wide range of initiatives in your platform statement, from expanding UW alert system to expanding sustainability partnerships, just to name a few. How do you plan on balancing each of them and or choosing which to prioritize?
Yeah, I mean, what I love about this university, for one, we have a lot of brilliant students who range from different communities and have different interests, and so I think the biggest thing is just working with the Director of Diversity Efforts and going to those different JCC communities and figuring out which one may need the most help at the moment, prioritizing how I can help them. But yeah, I'll say that's the biggest thing, is just collaborating with the Director of Diversity Efforts and seeing which constituents needs the most help.
Mm-hmm. One of your initiatives is to enhance mental health resources for BIPOC students. What partnerships do you plan on making to achieve this goal?
Yeah, so I would say one would be Live Well Huskies for sure. And one I would definitely work on too is the UW Counseling Center. I talked to a lot of students and, including myself, I think one major fault I would say from like the UW Counseling Center is, especially for like BIPOC students, is that they often feel like they're not heard. They feel like they're often like checking the box when they're seeing them, and then oftentimes they're not very accessible, and sometimes like it costs money as well. So I want to work to make it more accessible, more inclusive for students, because this is a very rigorous university for some. A lot of people are from out of state. We know how winter gets, seasonal depression and whatnot. I know I went through it at some point, so I think that's very important to leverage those two connections and see how we can help our students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Cranston Cope.
Hi everyone, my name is Cranston Koch and I'm running to be your Director of Campus Partnerships. I am a second year studying sociology and geography, minoring in public policy at the moment. I was originally born in NYC and then I moved to the Bay Area, and now I'm here and I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Hello. One of your platform goals is to advocate to the administration to emphasize the importance of funding the support and expansion of student resources, justice, and sustainability efforts. Can you elaborate on how you plan to address these funding concerns to the administration?
I think a lot of people have asked me what the Director of Campus Partnerships does, in the sense that people want to know what actions I would take, and I think a big part of that really is just advocacy, listening to the students, knowing what they want to see on campus. And I think a lot of students who are meeting this current moment recognize the need for the expansion of resources while also maintaining our resources. So definitely I think this is going to be a joint effort with the rest of the board of directors to make sure that we're keeping these lines of communication open with admin. But one of my plans is also to expand the mental health crisis intervention team with UW-PD. I think that given that UW-PD is currently understaffed, I fact-checked this yesterday. This really goes to show that UW-PD just does not really know how to meet mental health crises. A lot of times officers are called and then they just walk away because they don't know what to do. So I think this is one way that we can engage students and try and help them feel better supported in their time here at UW.
In your platform statement, you describe yourself as a ASUW outsider focused on community-based work. Why is this important to your campaign and the work you'll do in this position?
I like that question. So I'm a second-year student. I haven't been here for too long. I've been doing a lot of work just in the community through my RSO work. I run Huskies for Housing, an advocacy group. I've worked with a lot of nonprofits and really just tried to center all of my efforts to supporting students and our local community just from a campus standpoint. I really want to try and institutionalize more of the work that I'm doing, and that's why I chose to run for the Director of Campus Partnerships by focusing on student safety initiatives such as the expansion of the mental health response team, working with UW counseling, and even sourcing from the UW alumni networks, even UW Impact, just finding these kinds of circles where we can create new campus partnerships in order to expand, for example, let's say, the Know Your Rights workshops that are offered by SLS, Student Legal Services, which is inundated with requests for those right now. So that's really just why I'm running.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Caroline Hewley.
Okay. Hi, my name is Caroline Hughley. I'm a second-year student currently studying political science and history, and I'm from Frisco, Texas.
Hi, Caroline. You mentioned increasing awareness about AI chatbots such as ChatGPT as a part of being being a part of your platform. In your role as Director of Campus Partnerships, how do you plan on addressing AI, and how will this position help you increase awareness?
Yeah, so the campus partnerships, one of the main liaisons is to UW sustainability. So I'm not on a futile campaign to ban AI, but I do think that in this moment when it is still kind of in a gray area, it's really important to do more research on the environmental impacts it's making. It's sort of ethically questionable, so most of it would just be feedback from students, maybe a town hall, to hear back from students on their opinion on AI, how it helps them in their work, but also researching with UW sustainability to kind of see the environmental impact and if the cons of AI outweigh the benefits. But, yeah.
Currently, you are the Board of Directors Coordinator for ASUW. How has that position helped you prepare for the Director of Campus Partnerships position?
Yeah, so this was my first year in ASUW, and it definitely taught me a lot. I didn't really know a lot about ASUW before that, and there's a lot to learn, so I definitely know more about it now. It's also just been a huge source of inspiration for me, kind of seeing the board, going to the board meetings, seeing the board bills they introduce and how much work they put into it, has just really been inspirational to me continuing my own passion in student leadership. So yeah, it's mostly just been a source of inspiration, and that's, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lastly is Adriana Scott.
Hi everybody, so my name is Adriana Scott. I'm a third year here at UW. I'm majoring in public health, global health, and yeah, I'm the Vice President of Communications for the National Society of Black Health Professionals. Happy to be here.
Hi, Adriana. You mentioned being a certified nursing assistant and seeing how issues like poor mental health and lack of security affects people. What is your current plan to address these issues and create a, quote, safe, healthy, and connected campus for students?
Yeah, for sure. So I was a certified nursing assistant at UW Medical Center for a year, and I've seen so many things. I worked in the psych unit, and there were a lot of patients that just like broke my heart because they came off the street. They didn't have like any social workers to help them. So some safety issues I want to address on campus are, first, fix the Safe Zone app. Not that it's broken, it works just fine. But I want to expand the regions that it reaches, because personally it doesn't reach where I live, and I know that I would not feel as safe walking back from campus as if I was there and wasn't able to get the help I needed. Yeah.
Beyond health, wellness, and safety concerns at UW, do you have plans for other initiatives if elected? Beyond health, wellness, and safety concerns at UW, do you have plans for other initiatives if elected?
Other initiatives would be, I went to the Capitol with a bunch of students, and some bills that we worked on were, one, the Washington State College Grant. I know that for me that's a big, it's a big help to me because I get around like $7,000, which is a lot, and I don't have to choose between eating or my books for campus. Another one was where students who have children, I want them to be able to register earlier. And I know that this issue, it also has to do with health, but I think that I have a friend that's a mother, and I know that it would help her a lot if she could register earlier for classes so that she could plan for like daycare and just all the things that she needs to be successful in her education and also take care of her own child. So yeah.
Thank you.
Lastly, we're going to move to Director of University Affairs, and first we have Kate Lawson.
Hi there everyone, my name is Kate Lawson. I'm so excited to be running for your Director of University Affairs. I'm a sophomore political science student. I have a really great set of experiences that have prepared me for this role, whether that's serving in Student Senate, RSO leadership, or being a campaign intern last summer and a legislative intern over the last fall. So I'm really excited to get to tell you more about me today.
Hi Kate, you highlighted that you're dedicated to listening to your voice and bringing that perspective to UW. How do you define your voice, and how will you use that to balance collaboration with campus stakeholders?
For sure. So your voice to me just means the voice of all the students at UW. That means every student involved in an RSO, every student involved in taking classes, every student who's a commuter, all of the people that come and make our community great. I'm really dedicated to listening to this in a variety of ways and providing a variety of resources to students so they can come at me where they are. I'm going to be instating a lot more RSO office hours and group office hours for the Director of University Affairs. I know we're already required to do that, but I want to expand the breadth of that and let people book my time so that they're able to communicate with me effectively. Additionally, I plan to go out into the community as much as possible. I'm planning to dedicate time out of my schedule to go into RSO meetings and meet them where they are. If you're going to be able to get your group together today on Tuesday at 6 p.m., I will be there for you 5:45 with my notepad in hand. I'm really excited to get out into the community, communicate with folks where they are, and meet them in their place of community.
One of your goals is to increase transparency in decision-making processes by faculty and university staff. What are your immediate plans for implementing this and making sure that processes are actually transparent?
For sure. So as I was researching the Director of University Affairs role, debating whether or not I wanted to decide to run for it, I noticed that the Director of University Affairs, while is listed as being on the Provost Committee, faculty committees, and things like that, doesn't actually disclose when they have those meetings or what the content of those meetings are. And I'm planning to take a much more transparent approach to that. I'm planning on disclosing exactly when I'm meeting with the provost, exactly when I'm meeting with faculty councils, exactly what I'm discussing at those meetings, and giving that out in either newsletter form, also providing that resource in those RSO office hours that I was discussing, and providing that resource to the community. So going out and saying, hey, today I worked on a bill with the provost office, that will directly affect your community. Here's what I said in the meeting, here's what they said back to me, and here's how I'm gonna come at them next time. And doing that for all potential meetings that I have and everything that I'm involved in on campus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Toa Nakano Harris.
Should I just go right ahead?
Yeah, introduce yourself.
Okay. Hello, lovely daily people. My name is Toa Nakano Harris. My pronouns are she, her. I'm majoring in Law, Societies, and Justice, and I'm a current student senator and intern at the Office of Government Relations. I'm so happy to be here today.
Hello. How do you intend on achieving your goal of alleviating financial burdens for students with a consideration to the financial impact of like implementing the programs that you mentioned, like a child care and a textbook buyback program?
Right. So I think this really has two important aspects. Number one is funding, and number two is programs. And I think we really need to consider both those things, balance them, and weave them together as much as we can. So to go into a little bit more detail on those two programs that I have mentioned in my platform, number one is childcare. Currently, there's a couple of childcare services on campus, but they're completely full. UW students don't get priority, and they're expensive, and the childcare aid that UW provides doesn't cover that cost. As far as textbooks, we all know textbooks are expensive. I really would like to expand access to open educational resources and hopefully keep some textbooks in stock in UW libraries, which is a program that a lot of other universities have implemented and we don't have here. As far as funding, I have a lot of experience lobbying for funding. I'm, as I said, a OGR intern and a maximum recipient of the Washington College Grant, so it's super important to me to fight for funding, both from the university and from state legislators.
Your initiatives seem to be specifically targeted to your personal experience groups. As you will be representative of like the entire student body, how do you plan on making your initiatives broad enough to ensure every member of the campus community feels represented?
Yes, thank you so much for this question. So this is something I've really been thinking a lot about. I'd like to really be deeply rooted in my own personal experience, but of course I know that the personal experiences of other students are just as important. So a specific policy goal that I would like to implement to address this is to create a stakeholder database for RSOs and campus groups that have vested interest in a lot of issues. So what this would look like is if there's maybe a policy thing at the legislative level for states or the federal government or at the university level, I'd have a list of the RSOs, the bodies within ASUW that would be interested, and I can reach out directly to them to know what they would want me to do on this and what they want me to know. A great example of how this works super effectively is yesterday I had a meeting with the director of the Student Disability Commission. I learned so much about what students with disabilities need from university admin and from the director of university affairs. A couple policy goals that I learned from that, oh, sorry.
Thank you. Lastly is Alice Zubrowski. Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Alice Zvorowski. I'm a third-year student here currently studying Public Health Global Health with a minor in Public Policy, and I currently serve as ASUW SARVA's co-director, the Sexual Assault Relationship Violence Activist Entity, and even though I'm a huge cat person, I love my dogs, and thank you for having me.
Hi, Alice. You state that you have dedicated yourself to centering student voices in the administrative processes. How does this tie into centralizing student well-being resources, and what is your reasoning for making that your first action item on the list?
Yeah, absolutely. In my current position as a SARVA co-director, I've noticed that student well-being resources are extremely difficult to navigate. If you just typed into Google right now, you'd have resources for any well-being issue you may have. You're going to be sent at least 17 different links and half of them won't work. So one of the big initiatives that I've currently been working on with the current Director of University Affairs, Kimmy Godon, is having, if you open your Canvas, you'll see a lot of tabs on the left-hand side, and including a Student Wellbeing Resources tab, because right now it's up to the professor's discretion of if they'd like to add it to their Canvas page, and I feel like it should not be up to their discretion, it should just be there point blank for everyone. And by well-being, I mean mental health resources, identity-based resources, student legal resources, housing, everything. Well-being encompasses a lot of holistic things, And in May, I'm actually going to go to the Faculty Committee of Student Affairs to talk about this in the public listening session, and I would love to continue this endeavor. Thank you.
And then your last question. At UW, students lobby in Olympia through programs like WSA and Huskies on the Hill. Do you plan to expand knowledge of and access to these organizations, or instead create new pathways for lobbying?
Absolutely. Actually, one of my biggest ideas that I have for the University Affairs position is creating multiple Huskies on the Hill days. We still have that one big main one where they get to meet the governor and everything, but I noticed that the Divine Nine, the Black cultural fraternities and sororities, had their own lobbying day. And I was wondering, are they being helped with transportation? Are they being helped by OGR with funding? And I think that these resources need to be given to marginalized students because in the past they have systemically had their voices oppressed, especially in the political spheres. So I think using OGR's funding and capacity to create multiple lobbying days where the students have transportation provided for them, and also very importantly, having trainings and sessions leading up to the lobby day, empowering students to talk to legislators. As a child of immigrants and a neurodivergent person, I am not one of the groups of people who have been empowered in life to talk to administrative people, and we need to help everyone. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.